Hello, in this video we'll talk about mechanism of hormone action. This video is dedicated for CBSE school students or NEET UG aspirants. So stay tuned till the end of this video and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. This concept is from chapter 22 NCERT class 12 class 11 textbook. In this video we'll talk about hormonal mechanism. So hormones exhibit their effects on distant location by binding to specific receptor on the target tissue or target cell. Let us take an example. So simply, these kind of signaling could be imagined as a long distance signaling, which is also known as endocrine signaling. People who are living in long distance relationship would understand this signaling very well. So let's say from the pituitary gland, growth hormone is generated. So growth hormone is the ligand in this case, and the growth hormone would act on the bones which is present in the distant location. So cells in the bones receive this signal via specific receptor on their surface. Now what we understand, the signaling ligand and the receptor could be in very distant location, and this mode of signaling is known as endocrine signaling. Hormone receptors are of two types: intracellular receptor and membrane bound receptors. Now the membrane bound receptors are present on the cell surface and they can bind to the ligand and pass on the signal to the nucleus. Whereas the intracellular or nuclear receptors are either situated in the cytoplasm or in the nucleus. So for them, the signal need to come inside the cell in order to bind to the receptor. Now, binding of the hormone to its receptor is a highly specific process, and it forms the hormone receptor complex. Be it intercellular receptor or be it membrane bound receptor, this is true for both the scenario. Each receptor is specific to one particular hormone. In this case, this blue receptor is specific to this red hormone, and other receptors are not specific to this hormone, and that's why they cannot bind to that. In short, the hormone and receptor interaction is highly specific. But have you ever wondered what is the basis of this specificity? If you understand this question, then try to answer in the comment. Now, hormone receptor complex formation leads to biochemical changes at cellular and tissue level, and that brings out the physiological response. Hormone can be classified based on their chemical nature, and from the chemical nature we can predict what could be the basic mode of their action. So there are different type of hormones such as peptide, polypeptide hormones. Examples are insulin, glucagon, pituitary hormones, hypothalamic hormones, etc. There are also amino acid derivative hormones such as epinephrine, norepinephrine, etc. Now, there are steroid hormones which are generally derived from cholesterol, such as testosterone, estradiol, progesterone, all of these things, cortisol, and there are iodothyronines. That means all the thyroid hormones. So the first two category of hormones act via second messenger and membrane bound receptors. And this is super important to understand. And the second category of hormones act via intracellular/nuclear receptors. So first look at the first category of the receptors. So we are going to talk about peptide hormones and amino acid derivative hormones, how they interact with receptors and how they bring about the cellular changes. So all these protein type hormones bind to cell membrane bound receptors, and this specific interaction lead to conformational changes which can evoke second messenger cascade. That means this interaction can lead to activation of several proteins in the cytoplasm or several other molecules in the cytoplasm which take this signal or take the message down to the nucleus, and ultimately there would be gene expression changes. Now, this is very similar to passing on a cheat in an exam hall. So let's say you need to communicate with your friend who is sitting distant, and you cannot directly move from your place to that friend's place. So what you're going to do, you're going to pass some cheat to your friend, and your friend is going to pass the cheat, and ultimately it would reach to your another friend. So it's kind of like a relay system, and cells use these kind of relay system. But can you think of an advantage of this relay system? It looks like it is pretty cumbersome, but what could be the advantage of it? Anyway, there are several middlemen present in this signaling pathway who are known as second messengers. So these second messengers involve cyclic AMP, calcium, IP3, DAG, etc. But this video doesn't cover all the details of second messenger. If you want to learn more about the second messengers, click on the link in the I button. Now let's talk about the other type of hormones, which are steroid or thyroid hormone category. So all of these hormones work via intracellular receptors. So let's talk about a steroid hormone. Let's say we are talking about estrogen. So the estrogen would bind to estrogen receptor, which is present in the cytoplasm. Now in the cytoplasm, this estrogen receptor is held captive via a protein. Whenever this estrogen binds to its receptor, this particular protein dissociates, and now the estrogen receptor and hormone complex is free to diffuse to the nucleus, and inside the nucleus it would bind to specific regions and lead to gene expression changes or transcriptional activation. Now there are specific sequences on the DNA known as hormone response element. For estrogen it would be estrogen response element, which allows the hormone and receptor complex to bind to that. So estrogen receptor dimer binds to this response element, and this leads to gene expression changes. Majority of the steroid hormone receptor work like this. I mean, we have only taken the example of estrogen receptor. Now let's talk about, let's say, thyroid hormone. Now thyroid hormone receptors are already present in the nucleus, but they are bound to a transcriptional repressor. That means without the thyroid hormone, no gene expression can take place. Whenever the thyroid hormone binds to the receptor, it leads to gene expression and transcription initiation. Now, just like steroid hormones, thyroid hormone also binds to its hormone response element. So there are specific thyroid hormone response element present in our genome. Now thyroid hormone receptors are actually heterodimers. That means there are two different subunits in this complex. But anyway, be it heterodimer or homodimer, the end result is gene activation. So we encountered two different type of intracellular receptor as well. One which is residing in the cytoplasm, and upon hormone binding, it translocates into the nucleus. Another category is already present in the nucleus, and upon hormone binding, it shows its molecular action. So here are some examples of cytoplasmic receptor, and here are some examples of nuclear receptor. According to NCERT syllabus, you need to remember thyroid hormone receptor works via nuclear receptor, whereas the glucocorticoid or let's say any other steroid hormone receptor work via cytoplasmic receptor. Now let's go to the summary of these details. We encountered two different modules of signaling. One involves second messenger and a relay system, and another doesn't involve a second messenger. All the receptors are present in the nucleus or let's say in the cytoplasm. So it's important to understand the hormones which are steroid hormones. They can penetrate the membrane easily and move into the cytoplasm. Also the thyroid hormone can do that. A protein type hormone cannot really diffuse through the membrane. It would be prevented by the membrane. It cannot enter the cell. So Overall, we understand that there are two modes of signaling. Now let's try to understand why there are two modes of signaling. Why does our body needs different mechanisms of hormone signaling? What is the advantage of that? Okay, let me give you some clue. Think about the nuclear receptor signaling. It is time saving, it is fast, but there is a problem. There is no signal amplification. If you want to learn all about these things and more about signaling mechanism, you can check out my cell signaling playlist, which is in the I button. But that is beyond your NEET syllabus, or let's say your CBSE syllabus. If you are interested, you can feel free to check that out. If you like this video, give it a good thumbs up. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Thank you. You can find me in social media. All the links are provided in the description. Thank you.